What up, everybody? This is your boy Tech G back with another video to help you successfully pass the CompTIA 220-1001 examination. So let's get into it. In this video, you will learn about basic cable types, features, and their purposes, such as network cables, video cables, multi-purpose cables, peripheral cables, hard drive cables, and adapters. Network cabling is network hardware used to connect one network device to another network device, or to connect two or more computers to share printers, scanners, etc. Different types of network cables, such as coaxial cable, optical fiber cable, and twisted pair cables, are used depending on the network's physical layer, topology, and size. The devices can be separated by a few meters or nearly unlimited distances. Ethernet. Most of the networking cables covered in this lesson are different types of Ethernet cables. Ethernet is a system of communication rules that allow computers to work together. Ethernet is considered a networking protocol, which is slightly different than that of an application protocol. Ethernet describes how network devices can format and transmit data, so other devices on the same local or campus area network segment can recognize, receive, and process information wired or wirelessly. An Ethernet cable is the physical encased wiring over which the data travels. Ethernet cables carry small voltage pulses over a single frequency. This is known as baseband transmission. It is bidirectional, which means hosts can send and receive data on one cable. The various capabilities are indicated in cable categories. So let's talk about some of those categories. We have Cat 5e, Cat 6, and Cat 6a. So the most common standard cabling grades are Category 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a. All are suitable for use with both standard 10BASE-T and fast Ethernet networking. Cat 6, Cat 6a, and Cat 7 are capable of supporting 10BASE-T or 10 gigabit Ethernet networks. Regardless of category and speed, all copper Ethernet cables have a distance limitation of about 100 meters before the data signal weakens, and another device such as a switch, hub, or a repeater has to be introduced to boost the signal. And here is a pretty little chart that you can look at on my website, Technology G, to help break down some of the categories, the network types that they support, their supported speeds, and some additional notes. And you more than likely will be questioned on material coming off of this chart in the future examination that you are going to take and pass. Let's talk about plenum and PVC. So there are two categories of twisted pair cable in terms of their fire rating. You have standard, and this is suitable for patch cables between a NIC and a network jacket or in a patch panel. It typically has a PVC jacket, which can create a lot of smoke when burned. And then you have plenum. This is designed for use in plenum space, which is a part of a building that can facilitate air circulation for heating and cooling, such as ventilator shafts, underfloors, or between suspended ceilings and the permanent ceilings. Plenum cables produce less smoke and lower levels of toxic chemicals when burned, and is commonly self-extinguishing. Plenum cable jackets might be made from Teflon or from a modified version of PVC that produces less smoke when burned than standard PVC. Let's talk about shielded twisted pair versus unshielded twisted pair. So twisted pair cabling is a type of wiring in which two conductors of a single circuit are twisted together for the purpose of improving electromagnetic compatibility. Twisted pair cabling is the most common of the major cabling types. Twisted pair cabling typically consists of 4 twisted pairs of wires surrounded by a flexible jacket, to where it could be unshielded TP, which is also known as UTP, or various types of metal foil or braid, which is also known as shielded TP or STP. STP and UTP use the same RJ45 connectors, but STP includes a metal shield or electrical insulation between the wire pairs and the outer jacket. STP is also more stiff and more durable, yet more expensive and harder to loop through tight spaces than UTP. It is used where electromagnetic interference prevents the use of UTP cable. Both cables can be purchased in pre-built assemblies or can be built using bulk cable and connectors. And here is a pretty little picture showing STP cable with the metal shield, while the UTP cable does not have the metal shielding around it. All right, let's talk about T56.8 Bravo and T56.8 Alpha standard. So the wiring standard for all types of Ethernet UTP cables is known as T568B or T568 Bravo for all of my military people out there. This type of cable is also known as a straight through cable, which is most commonly used to connect a host to a client, such as the RJ45 wire connected from a PC to a home router or dissimilar devices. The wire order from left to right when looking at the top of the connector is as such. Pin 1 is orange, white. Pin 2 is orange, 3 is green, white, 4 is blue. Then we have blue, white, green, brown, white, and brown. That is called the pinout for the straight through cable. Then we have the crossover cable or the T568 Alpha. The T568 Alpha standard, this swaps the positions of the orange and green wires used in the T568 Bravo. This type of cable is also known as a crossover cable, which are most commonly used to connect two hosts directly, such as a PC directly connecting to another PC or a switch connecting to another switch. So basically you are connecting similar devices. The wire order from left to right when looking at the top of the connector is as follows. Pin 1, you got green, white, green, orange, white, blue, blue, white, orange, brown, white, and brown. Now, you can create a crossover cable by building one end to the T568 Bravo standard and the other end to the T568 Alpha standard. And below here is a pretty little picture showing you the RJ45 pinout for the straight through and the crossover cables. Let's talk about fiber. So fiber optics is a technology that uses glass or plastic threads to transmit data. A fiber optic cable consists of a bundle of glass threads, each of which is capable of transmitting messages modulated onto light waves. Fiber optics is the fastest type of internet service, which is primarily used as a backbone between networks. Fiber optic cable comes in two major categories. The first category is called single mode. This has a thin core between 8 to 10 microns that is designed to carry a single light ray long distances of up to 60 kilometers or further. Single mode cables, they use a laser diode as a light source, and the typical uses include cable TV and telephone companies. And then you have multi-mode. This has a thicker core of 62.5 microns than the single mode cable. It carries multiple light rays for short distances up to 10 kilometers. Multi-mode cable uses an LED light source, and the typical uses include local and metropolitan area networks or LANs and MANs. Now, fiber optic devices and cables, they use one of several connector types. You have the SC connector that uses a square connector. You have the LC that also uses a square connector. And then you have the ST that uses a round connector. RG6. So coaxial cabling is the oldest type of network cabling. Its data wires are surrounded by a wire mesh for insulation. Prior to the advent of fiber optics, the fastest internet service available to home and business customers was cable internet. Cable internet is a form of broadband internet access, which uses the same RG6 coaxial cable as a cable television, but adds a device called a cable modem to convert the signal for use by computers and home business networks. RG6 has a 75 ohm resistance. It uses an 18 gauge center conductor, is available in quad shielded versions, and can carry signals up to 1.5 gigahertz, making it much better for HD TV signals. RG59 is used in older cable TV and satellite installations, as well as closed circuit television security installations. It also has 75 ohms of resistance. RG59 uses a 22 gauge center conductor and a single outer shield. It is designed for signals up to 50 megahertz. And here is a pretty little picture of a typical RG6 coaxial cable. If you have cable internet, chances are you have one of these things hanging off your wall right now plugged into a modem. Let's talk about some of the connectors that come with these coaxial cables. So you have what is called the BNC connector, and this is a miniature quick connect disconnect radio frequency connector used for coaxial cable. BNC connectors are typically used for CCTV cameras and some types of video projectors. BNC connectors are crimped to the coaxial cable and use a positive locking bayonet mount. Then we have what is called the F connector, and the F connector is a coaxial radio frequency connector used for, quote, over-the-air terrestrial television, cable television, and universally for satellite television and cable modems. F connectors can be crimped or attached via compression to the coaxial cable. High-quality cables, they tend to use a threaded connector. And then we have what is called a two-way splitter. So a coaxial signal splitter. This takes the power on the input port and splits it equally amongst the output ports. So for example, a two-way splitter has one input port and two output ports. It sends half the power of the input signal to one of the output ports. The other half is sent to the other output port. Hence the reason why it's called a two-way splitter. Now we're going to start talking about some video cables. So with the selection of monitor or projector for use with a particular video card or integrated video port, it's helpful to understand the physical and feature differences between different video connector types, such as VGA, DVI, HDMI, DisplayPort, RGB, BNC, S-Video, and composite. And this is a pretty little chart that I put together, which you can check out on my website, Technology G, that breaks down the various types of connectors, their signals, their resolutions, what they support, and all that great, wonderful stuff to help you pass this exam. VGA. So a video graphics array connector is a standard connector used for computer analog video output. A VGA card made for use with the standard analog monitor uses a DB15F or a 15-pin female connector, which plugs into the DB15M male connector used by the VGA cable from the monitor. By varying the levels of red, green, or blue per dot or pixel on screen, a VGA port and monitor can display an unlimited number of colors, but practical color limits are based on the video card's memory and the desired screen resolution. The base resolution, which is the horizontal and vertical dots of VGA, is 640 by 480. An enhanced version of VGA, which is also known as Super VGA or SVGA, and this typically refers to 800 by 600 VGA resolutions. HDMI, so high definition multimedia interface. This is a connector and cable capable of transmitting high quality and high bandwidth streams of audio and video between devices. HDMI was originally developed for use with HD TVs. It is now a common feature on laptops, desktops, and monitors, as well as HD TVs and HD projectors. HDMI is available in various versions, but older HDMI cables might not support advanced functions such as 3D or resolutions beyond 1080p. The most recent HDMI standard, which is version 2.1, it supports video resolutions and refresh rates, including 8K 60 and 4K 120, as well as resolutions up to 10K. The earlier version, which was version 1.4b, supports 1080p HD TV and resolutions up to 4096 by 2160, which is also known as 4K by 2K, 48-bit color depths, various types of uncompressed and compressed digital audio, 3D over HDMI, and fast Ethernet. The most common HDMI port is Type A, which has 19 pins. It is used to achieve high definition resolutions such as 1920 by 1080, which is also known as 1080p or 1080i. And here is a pretty little picture of a standard HDMI cable that you probably have lying around your house somewhere. Then we have what is called the mini HDMI. So the HDMI 1.3 and later specifications also define a mini HDMI connector or Type C connector. It is smaller than the Type A plug, but has the same 19-pin configuration. The HDMI 1.4 specification defines a micro HDMI connector or Type D, which uses the same 19-pin configuration, but in a connector the size of a micro USB plug. Let's talk about DisplayPort. So DisplayPort is a digital display interface primarily used to connect to a video source to a display device such as a computer monitor. It can also be used to carry audio, USB, and other forms of data. DisplayPort has similar resolution and audio video features of HDMI, but with two major differences. And those differences are DisplayPort is a royalty-free video standard. DisplayPort 1.2 and later supports daisy chaining of displays. DisplayPort utilizes packet transmissions similar to Ethernet and USB. Each packet transmitted has the clock embedded, whereas DVI and HDMI utilize a separate clocking signal. DisplayPort connectors are not compatible with USB, DVI, or HDMI. However, devices that support dual mode DisplayPort technology are capable of sending HDMI or DVI signals with the use of the appropriate adapter. DisplayPort offers a maximum transmission distance of 3 meters over passive cable, and in theory up to 33 meters over active cable. There are 20 pins in the display connector, with pins 19 and 20 being used for 3.3 volts on active cables. DisplayPort cables can be up to 15 meters long, but quality decreases with length. DisplayPort is currently available in 3 versions. You have DisplayPort 1.1. The maximum data transfer rate is 8.64 gigabits per second. You have 1.2. The maximum data transfer rate is 17.28 gigs per second, and it introduces many DisplayPort connectors and support for 3D. Then you have DisplayPort 1.3. The max data transfer rate is that of 32.4 gigabits per second, with support for 4K, 5K, and 8K UHD displays. DVI. So DVI was designed to replace VGA while also being compatible with VGA signals. It was developed to be an industry standard for transmitting digital video content to display devices at resolutions as high as 2560 by 1600. Common devices that use the DVI connection are computer monitors and projectors. The DVI connector may have one of 3 names depending on the signal it supports. You have DVI-A that supports analog only, DVI-D is digital, and DVI-I supports both digital and analog signals. All right, so let's talk about multi-purpose cables. And these are cables that can perform more than one function, such as combining the ability to charge batteries and transfer data. The first one is the lightning connector, and this is used for both charging batteries and transferring data. Apple iOS devices up through the iPhone 4 and 3rd generation iPad use Apple's 30-pin connector. In 2012, iOS devices began using the 8-pin reversible lightning connector. However, the iPad Pro uses the USB Type-C or the USB-C connector. The data transfer rates are about the same as with the USB 2.0 standard. Next, we have the Thunderbolt, and the Thunderbolt is a high-speed peripheral connection standard originally introduced by Apple for its Mac OS desktop and laptop computers. Thunderbolt has also been adopted by some manufacturers of computers and motherboards that use Microsoft Windows. Thunderbolt allows the connection of external peripherals to a computer. Thunderbolt 1 and 2 use the same connector as the mini DisplayPort, whereas Thunderbolt 3 reuses the USB-C connector from USB. Thunderbolt is also used for high-speed storage, including external drives, network-attached storage, and RAID, as well as for high-resolution video. Thunderbolt also supports daisy-chain peripherals. In Thunderbolt, a cable from the computer connects to the first device in the chain. The device has 2 Thunderbolt ports, so another device is connected to the second port, and so on. If storage and display devices are mixed on a single Thunderbolt daisy chain, the display needs to be the last device. And there's a pretty little chart for your viewing pleasure showing you the various versions of Thunderbolt, their maximum speed, and their connection types. And here's a pretty little picture showing you the various Thunderbolt connections and a USB-A connector. Now, because of Thunderbolt's high bandwidth, it can be connected to docks that might feature multiple port types as well. Let's talk about USB. So Universal Serial Bus is a plug-and-play interface that allows a computer to communicate with the peripheral and other devices. USB ports can be used for input devices such as keyboards, mice, and scanners, storage devices such as flash drives, optical drives, and external hard drives, output devices such as printers, multifunction devices, and even displays, and adapters for both wired and wireless networks. A single USB port, which is also known as a root hub, can connect to multiple devices when a USB hub is connected to the port. Next, we have what is called USB-C, and this is an industry standard connector for transmitting both data and power on a single cable. The USB-C connector is easier to connect because it is reversible, so there is no up or down side to the plug. And with the appropriate adapter, it allows for backwards compatibility to the USB 2.0. The USB-C standard refers to the connector type of the cable, not the data transfer rate of the cable. USB-C can handle any data rate from USB 2 to USB 3.1. Let's talk about USB 2.0, 3.0, and 3.1. So 3 standards for USB ports that are included on the A+ examination are going to be USB 2.0, which is known as high speed, 3.0, which is known as super speed, and it's also known as 3.1 generation 1. And then you have USB 3.1, which is known as super speed plus, and this is also known as 3.1 generation 2. And there is a pretty little chart for your viewing pleasure to help you identify each of these USB versions. Now, with any version of USB, a single USB port on an add-on card or motherboard is designed to handle up to 127 devices through the use of multi-port hubs and daisy chaining hubs. USB devices are plug-and-play devices that are hot swappable, meaning you can just take them out and stick them back in without having to power down the device. Let's talk about the serial peripheral cable. So a serial cable is a cable that is used to transfer information between 2 devices using a serial communication protocol. The form of connectors depends on the particular serial port used, although serial cables did conform to the RS-232 standard. Serial means that data bits flow in a line, one after the other, over a cable. Serial connections were designed for the relatively low speed of telephone modem communication, but were also used for other devices such as keyboards, mice, and other peripheral devices. USB cables have replaced serial cables, but it is possible to use a USB to serial adapter to connect to an older machine if necessary. Hard drive cables are built to carry data to and from the motherboard. Let's talk about the SATA cable, which is a type of hard drive cable. So serial ATA is a computer bus interface that connects host bus adapters to mass storage devices such as hard disk drives, optical drives, and solid state drives. SATA cables are next generation serial cables that carry high speed data. SATA cables can be used internally or externally. SATA cables housed inside of a computer case offers the advantage of high speed and better airflow inside of the casing. External SATA cables, also known as eSATA, allow for external drives to be mounted at the same data rate and provide better shielding to protect the cable and the data. Next type of cable is called an IDE cable. So an integrated drives electronic cable connects devices to a motherboard inside of a computer case. Older hard drives typically have IDE connectors, and an IDE cable is one that accommodates them. Presently, SATA and SSD storage drives are more common. An IDE cable typically has 3 connectors, one for the motherboard that splits off into 2 separate connectors. This way, you can attach 2 hard drives to a motherboard with only 1 cable. Next, let's talk about SCSI. So small computer system interfaces. This is a set of standards for physically connecting and transferring data between computers and peripheral devices. SCSI cables have mostly been replaced by SATA cables inside of a computer. The advantages of a SCSI drive system is that up to 7 and sometimes 15 SCSI drives can be daisy chained together in comparison to an IDE connector that supports only 2 drives. Let's move on to adapters. So physical cable adapters are often the short-term and economical answer to technical compatibility problems during an upgrade cycle. The first type of adapter is the DVI to HDMI adapter. So due to the HDMI using the same video signals as DVI, DVI to HDMI cables and adapters are widely available. Typically, these adapters only allow for video signals to be transmitted, but some newer graphic cards allow for HDMI audio over DVI. Next, we have the USB to Ethernet adapter, and this enables a device without an Ethernet port to connect to a wired network. And then we have the DVI to VGA adapter. The DVI-I includes both VGA compatible analog video and DVI digital video. All right, so that's the lesson. So let's go ahead and get into some of this check on learning, shall we? So the first question is, which USB standard supports up to 5 gigabits per second transfer speeds? Is it 2.6, 5.0, 3.0, or 2.0? So which USB standard supports 5 gigabits per second transfer speeds? The correct answer is 3.0. USB 3.0 supports 5 gigabits. Next question. Which video cable type can carry video and audio signals? Is it serial, SCSI, SCSI, VGA, or mini HDMI? So which video cable can carry video and audio? The correct answer is the mini HDMI cable can do that. And the final question is, your supervisor has asked you to bring her a 15-pin connector. Which of the following is she referring to? Is she talking about a VGA connector, a DVI-A connector, a DVI-D connector, or an HDMI connector? So she needs a 15-pin connector. Which one is she talking about? She is talking about a VGA connector, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So in summary, we have talked about basic cable types such as network cables, video cables, multi-purpose cables, peripheral cables, hard drive cables, and adapters. Now, if you felt like you have got something valuable out of this information, please go ahead and hit the like button, drop a comment, share this video, but most importantly, hit the subscribe button for this channel. Also, please go visit my website, technologyg.com, so that you can get read up on the latest and greatest to help you successfully pass the CompTIA 220-1001 examination. And until next video, ladies and gentlemen, peace.